Judges fight back, the legal battle over Trump's growing executive authority. Good morning and welcome back to LCC News. This is your one-stop destination for political analysis and the latest updates on critical legal and governmental issues. Today we focus on one of the most pressing challenges facing U.S. democracy: President Donald Trump's expanding use of executive powers. In recent weeks, judges across the political spectrum have voiced strong concerns about Trump's power grab, with several legal rulings pushing back against his administration's actions. From the application of the AlienEnemiesAct of 1798 to the growing use of emergency powers, this issue raises questions about the future of checks and balances in America. Trump's expanding use of executive powers. In recent months, President Trump has been increasingly invoking emergency powers to push through his agenda, bypassing Congress and avoiding the usual legislative process. These powers, which allow the president to make sweeping decisions without congressional approval, have become a central tool for Trump as he navigates the political landscape. Whether it's in the form of tariffs, immigration restrictions, or military actions, the Trump administration has used the argument of national emergency to justify its actions. One of the most significant and controversial applications of these powers occurred when Trump invoked the AlienEnemiesAct of 1798 to expedite mass deportations. This 18th-century law, designed for wartime conditions, was used to deport members of the Venezuelan gang, Tren de Aragua. The application of this law in a time of peace raised immediate concerns about its legality and its alignment with modern human rights standards. Legal pushback from judges across the spectrum. The legal challenges to Trump's use of executive power have come swiftly and from unexpected places. In early May 2025, a federal judge appointed by Trump himself ruled against the administration's interpretation of the AlienEnemiesAct. Judge Fernando Rodriguez Jr. concluded that the act should only be applied in times of war or in response to an actual invasion. He argued that the use of the law to deport people in peacetime, especially those seeking asylum, was not only legally unsound, but also unconstitutional. The ruling, which blocked Trump's mass deportation order, sent shockwaves through the political and legal community. While Trump's legal team may appeal the ruling, the decision has ignited widespread discussion about the increasing concentration of power in the executive branch and the role of the courts in preserving democratic norms. Moreover, the pushback against Trump's power grab has not been limited to liberal judges. Judges appointed by both Democratic and Republican presidents have voiced concerns about the erosion of checks and balances. In fact, the Trump administration's use of emergency powers has become one of the few issues that has united judges from across the political spectrum. For instance, a ruling in the case of mass deportations under the AlienEnemiesAct was issued by a judge appointed by President George W. Bush. This bipartisan concern underscores a critical point. The use of emergency powers and the expansion of executive authority are seen as dangerous precedents, regardless of political affiliation. The risks of an expanding executive power. The expanding use of executive power under Trump is raising alarms not only among judges, but also among constitutional scholars and civil rights organizations. By sidestepping Congress, Trump is altering the balance of power that has existed since the founding of the United States. This unchecked expansion of executive authority threatens the fundamental principles of democracy by bypassing the safeguards that Congress and the judiciary provide. George Washington, one of the founding fathers, understood the importance of congressional approval for military actions. The U.S. Constitution, in its careful design, vested the authority to declare war in Congress, not in the president. However, over the past several decades, presidents have gradually expanded their use of executive powers. While these powers have occasionally been necessary in times of crisis, their use has become increasingly commonplace and politically motivated under the Trump administration. What's concerning is the precedent this sets for future presidents. If emergency powers continue to be used without proper checks and balances, it could lead to a dangerous concentration of power in the executive branch. This could pave the way for future leaders to bypass Congress and govern without meaningful oversight, threatening the very foundation of American democracy. The role of public opinion and congressional oversight. As the legal battles unfold, public opinion is beginning to shift. While Trump's base has largely supported his use of executive powers, there is growing dissatisfaction among moderates and even some conservatives who feel that the president's actions are overreaching. Michelle Hall, a Trump supporter from Snohomish, Washington, was quoted in the New York Times saying, "I wanted to have faith, but I don't have that faith anymore." This sentiment reflects the broader disillusionment among citizens who feel that the president's use of emergency powers is undermining the democratic process. Moreover, the role of Congress in this debate cannot be overstated. The Constitution gives Congress the power to check presidential actions, particularly in matters of national security and military authority. However, in recent years, Congress has become increasingly ineffective in its oversight role. With partisan gridlock and the reluctance to challenge the president, Congress has allowed the expansion of executive powers to go largely unchecked. The result is that Trump and future presidents may continue to push the boundaries of executive power without facing meaningful opposition from the legislature. This raises important questions about the future of American governance and whether the balance of power will remain intact. The need for a renewed commitment to constitutional norm. The debates continue. It's clear that the erosion of democratic norms has reached a critical point. If we allow executive overreach to continue unchecked, we risk undermining the system of government that has kept the United States a democracy for over 200 years. Judges, lawmakers, and the public must remain vigilant and actively push back against the abuse of executive power. In the coming months, the courts will play a key role in determining the future of executive authority. As more cases reach the federal courts, the judiciary will likely continue to shape the conversation about the limits of presidential power. However, the ultimate responsibility lies with the American people. Public opinion and active engagement with the political process will be crucial in maintaining the constitutional balance between the executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The expansion of executive power under President Trump is one of the most significant constitutional crises in modern U.S. history. While the legal challenges to his actions are promising, the ultimate resolution of these issues will require a concerted effort from all branches of government and from the American public. Judges across the political spectrum are sending a clear message. Something has gone badly wrong. The unchecked use of emergency powers is not only a threat to the separation of powers, but also to the core values of democracy. If we are to preserve the system of checks and balances, it is crucial that we resist the temptation to sideline Congress and the courts in favor of presidential decrees. As we move forward, it will be essential to continue to question the expansion of executive power and to ensure that the democratic principles enshrined in the U.S. Constitution are protected for future generations. Thank you for joining us today on LCC News. Stay tuned for further updates on this important issue.